Hey guys, Andy and Spoken Late back in the house on a Tuesday evening. It's been erratic weather today, so I've got wet and I've got dry and I've got wet again, so I can't win. But at least if nothing else, unlike Scotland, which I've been hearing, is going to have snow shortly, and in June, that's very, very weird. So anyway, keeping off the weather, we've got an all far with us today, and we've got a lady with us now. This lady, who doesn't know this, I actually came across her work by an advert on Facebook, which just shows sometimes adverts on Facebook do work because the amount of people I know that moan about them say, "Oh, we don't get anything off them." Well, bear that in mind. Now we've got the amazing and very talented Charlotte Wood with us today, and we're going to talk about Charlotte's debut novel, which at the time of recording is not out, but it's out on the end of June. This podcast will be out just after that, so we're going to try and work a way around it as like a podcast for the future. So, but anyway, Charlotte, obviously, I don't actually know where you're from, to be honest, before we started, because I couldn't find out in your bio information. So, tell us about where you're from and what led you down your creative path.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for having me, first of all. So I am from Sheffield originally, and I now live in northeast Derbyshire. And I not really left the area that much, but I lived up in Newcastle when I was at university, which was a lovely place to live. In terms of creativity, I don't think I can ever remember not writing stories. I've got memories of being a kid writing stories down in notebooks or on the old Acorn computer, if you remember those.
Oh wow! Oh wow! Mine was BBC Basics. That's because I'm old, right? Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, so we had an Acorn computer at home, and that used to get tapped into every so often. But I suppose things changed for me a bit when I was 13 because I discovered a man called Stephen King, and that changed everything.
Yes, I can see that. Now, people obviously we're going to jump around time zone because that's me for you. I noticed that on your Instagram feed where his pictures as books to come up a few times.
Yeah.
So yeah, is there any books here that your favourites then?
Well, it's difficult because I think you can change so easily when you read one, but I think The Shining is the absolute jewel in the crown, without a doubt.
I struggled with that book because it terrified me that
Yeah,
much.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There's so many elements to that book that still make my blood run cold just thinking about it. And then I've recently read The Dead Zone, which is
Oh wow! Oh, good grief! Yeah,
fantastic.
that's a nice cheerful book as well, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. But what I liked about that one was it wasn't really a horror. It was more of a psychological thriller. And I didn't realize until I'd finished it that there was no monsters, there was no ghosts or ghouls or anything. It was just this man dealing with this situation that he was in that was unusual and weird, and obviously it ends, in a typical Stephen King kind of way. But yeah, I'd say those were the top two.
Yes, fair play, fair play. I've got a couple of like, but it's against your podcast, so yeah. I could always remember because my wife Amanda, she's a horror writer as well. Like, as well.
Yeah.
I wish I had her with me tonight. You two would go great, I think. But she's working, so. But I know the one that always annoys her was the uncut version of Stand, not because of the length of the book. She did it through Audible, and it was 49 hours long.
Goodness.
That's what, yeah. But anyway, we're digressing. Yeah. So Mr. King obviously was your big influence as a writer, then, wasn't he? And were you?
Yeah, yeah. So when I was younger, before I started reading Stephen King, I used to go to the library and just consume the Point horror books, if you remember the Point books.
I do.
Um,
Yeah.
and then somebody suggested that I tried Stephen King, and I got lent a copy of Carrie,
Oh.
which when you're 13, I'm not sure if that's the right time to read it or the wrong time to read it, but I absolutely loved it, and it set me off on this kind of obsessive journey that you can only really go on when you're a teenager, where I just consumed horror in all of its forms, on film, on page, everything, and just it shaped me, and it shaped the way that I created things. And I remember being asked to write a children's story once, and I just couldn't do it. You know, little Timmy was walking off down the street, and then a monster came. You know, I couldn't get away from that kind of the dark and the macabre side of stories. I prefer that sort of stuff, and that's where my mind automatically goes.
No, that's fair play to yourself. So when did you start properly writing then? Was it about 13 then, was it? Or was it a little bit later?
It was probably a little bit later, probably after I left school. Started writing when I was at college. I did English, and there was a creative writing element to that. And I wrote a short story about a housemaid who poisoned the two very spoilt children that she was helping to care for. And I got full marks for that, got an A.
Excellent. Oh, I'm well impressed with that. Oh, good.
Yeah, I really enjoyed writing that. And I went a bit out on a limb a bit because I was 16, 17 probably at the time. And I don't think it's what the tutor was really expecting to get from like that age. But yeah, it really encouraged me. And then I went to uni and did English at uni as well, and
Oh,
carried
brilliant.
on.
Yeah, as you do. Now, obviously, we're here today to talk about your debut novel, Heather. And
Yes.
that's got big links, hasn't it, to your university days?
Oh, it
Yeah,
did.
now people are wondering, obviously, it's only taken you a year or two to write this book, hasn't it, really? Right.
Yeah.
But I don't want to age you, but unfortunately, you've stated it elsewhere, haven't you? Like,
Yeah.
you
No,
started this book in 2003,
yeah.
which people are wondering, yes, no, it's not 2004, it's 2024. Yeah, so it took you just a couple of years to get this book
Yeah,
done,
just a
hasn't
bit.
it? So, yeah, but I can rip you because people know it took me 15 years to do my debut novel, so I'm not much better. So, but that's why. But tell us about the births of the book then. 'Cause I know when your university teacher, didn't you, told you like you can't write a novel in, was it 2 months, was it? I think I read.
Yeah. So I wrote the first draft of the book in between years 2 and 3 of university. And when I was in year 2, I lived in a flat above a video rental shop, which also ages me. And the bedroom that I had mirrors all down one side of the room, which was both beneficial and a little bit creepy. And one night I woke up having a nightmare, and in the dream I'd sat up in bed and looked in the mirror and seen my face, and then off to the right there was also another face of a girl. And I woke up in a bit of a cold sweat and just went, that'd make a great story. So I kind of scribbled it down on a piece of paper, went back to sleep. I didn't think about it again until I got home for the summer break, where I kind of squirreled myself away in my parents' house with a laptop and just kind of regurgitated this story for over the course of 2 months. And yeah, I've never typed so fast in my life. It just kind of, it all came out. I didn't have a plan. I just had this one idea, and it all just came from that one dream. But yeah, when I went back to uni, I was doing a creative writing module, and I went to the tutor and I said, look, I've written this novel in the break. What should I do? And she went, nobody can write a book in 2 months. And I, at 20 years old, I wasn't really prepared to take that, because in my mind, I'd written this fully formed story that was fine. I was a bit too lazy to think about editing it. So I took it a bit to heart and thought, okay, they know what they're talking about, and I'll just not bother. So it just sat on that laptop for 20 years, and thankfully my husband took all of the stuff off the laptop and put it onto a hard drive, not knowing what was on it. And then last year, so 20 years after, in 2023, I said, can I just check if something called Heather is on that hard drive? And it was. And I was like, right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to edit this, and we're going to publish it.
Brilliant. Now, obviously, I was going to ask you later on in the pod session really here about how you feel about looking back at that book now, but we'll ask you it now, I think, instead, before we go into the contents of the book itself.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I know when I got through my novel, which said took me 15 years. Mine got put down for about
Yeah,
12 years itself. So when I went back to the book, I was looking at it thinking, oh, I liked it, but you know what I mean. You knew. I think experience taught you what you could probably knew where you went wrong, didn't you? Probably with it. Did you find that yourself looking back at this book?
absolutely. I kind of felt like I was meeting myself at 20, which was weird because um I mean you don't get to do that, do you, normally? And that doesn't
No,
happen. But
no.
I when I reread it, I thought some of the bits I was really pleased with, and I was like the basic story I'm happy with, and the characters and everything else I was fine with. But there were some little comments in it that I thought, gosh, I was naive. Um, that that's not how life works. Um, and there's a scene in the book where someone's talking about their husband and how much she loves her husband. And at 20, I mean, I wasn't married at 20. I hadn't really had any serious relationships really at 20. So I was trying to talk about something that I had never experienced. Fast forward 20 years, it's a different story. So I was able to go back and add the experience of those 20 years back in and kind of but keep the essence of that story as it was.
Yeah, I think it is to say sometimes you just need to. I think you need to live a life a bit sometimes before you can actually get into your book. Yeah, I got you. Yeah, I agree with you. I think I was in the same boat with my book on that. Yeah, straight away. Now, if people
Yeah.
are wondering, obviously, the book itself is about the relationship, obviously split over several generations between two girls, Heather and Fern. Now, tell us about the journey of both of these characters. Then I'm guessing Fern came first, didn't she, when you were devising this book?
Yes, she did. Yeah. So Fern is a university student. Um, she's decided in her second year of uni to take a flat on her own, purely because she didn't enjoy the halls of residence and the kind of chaos that that brings. So she decided to take a flat on her own. Um, and it doesn't take long for her to start having weird dreams and basically come across this mystery in this house, and she's dreaming about Edwardian schools that she's never been to, and basically haunted by a character who turns out to be Heather. And Heather lived 100 years previous in the Edwardian era. And it's hard to talk about Heather without giving anything away, because the whole story really is about Fern's discovery of Heather's story and how Heather came to die, essentially. And that's not really giving anything away because
No, it's
it's
not.
kind
I
of
think
obvious. But
Yeah, I
um
think it's the mystery behind it. And we'll leave it at that for people there, just to
yeah,
lure them
yeah.
in. But yeah, there's that's a good way of putting it because a lot of twist in this book there is, and I'm conscious I don't want to give too much away here. That's why, because I could easily just put my foot in my mouth and drop you straight in this. But I thought, no, I'm not going to. Very conscious of that. But yeah, what I liked about it was the very, very clever way you were used diary entries. You did it twice with two different characters, I think three characters actually, I think it was. And obviously, the
Yeah.
first one up was Heather's diary entries. And also, you did
Mhm.
poetry for her as well. Now, obviously, you're writing poetry in the voice of a 12-year-old and also doing the
Yes.
diary entries. How tricky was that for you to do?
It was by far and away the hardest part of the whole book. Um, Heather um wants to be a writer. That's her dream. And she uses her diary to express those feelings. So she naturally writes poems to express how she's feeling. She's having a very rough time. Um, and trying to think about how a 12-year-old Edwardian girl who is essentially being bullied by her teachers, um, being told that she can't live out her life the way that she wants to. It was very, very difficult. I had to just try and get into that mindset of being a frustrated 12-year-old, which, we've all been. So it was just a case of trying to remember what that felt like.
Yeah, no, understandable. We've all been there with it, definitely. But yeah, I think he said it's well, you're doing it for a different era as well. Did you find I don't want to give too much away here, obviously, but did you find you had to put in the research to get the character's voice right through these diary entries, on the poetry as well?
Mm. Well, that was one of the things that where my naivety from the original draft came in, because I didn't do a lot of research in the initial stage. I did it afterwards. So when I re-edited it, I made sure everything was accurate. But I accidentally got some stuff right because I was at uni and I was reading literature from that era. So it kind of, maybe it went in by osmosis, I don't know, but it was the style was there and it was around me, and I could kind of mimic Edwardian and Victorian literature.
Good. No, I think it's the hardest point. I think I was like that in my first novel. There's parts of it I definitely, looking back when I was younger, wrote it. I definitely winged it to a degree. Then
Yeah.
when I got back to it later on, I managed to crack it, and I thought, oh, I've got that nearly right, and that was lucky. So, yeah, definitely that. Now, again, I'm trying to be quite conscious of being careful here with this, but I know the people, when they read the book, they will know there is a time jump in this book.
Mhm.
And obviously, I'm not going to say why, but what made you want to do a time jump?
Do you know what? I can't actually remember because that
So
was
slow
20
that.
years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think if I'm remembering any of my process, it was partly because I I wrote it because it's kind of halfway through that we time jump. I'd kind of got to the end of Fern and Heather's personal journey between the two of them. And then I was wanting to move on to kind of Fern discovering more about the other people in that story, in Heather's story. And the logical way from the way I was thinking of it was to jump, if you like, and look back and find things later. And it's just kind of ironic that it's turned out that I did the exact same thing with the story.
Yeah, no, that makes sense of that. Now, again, like I said, I'm going to be careful what I say here in the second part. But again, you did go into doing other viewpoints and through diaries as well. Not
Yeah,
going to say who these are, because people have to read the book. I thought it was very
yeah.
well done indeed. But
Thank you.
what made you want to bring some other viewpoints in through diaries, more diary entries?
Well, the I wanted to bring more light and shade to Heather. Um, she is who the book is about, really. I mean, it is about Fern and Heather, but um, if you hear one side of a story, you can either believe it or not. And I felt like getting the other two characters that you're referring to, getting their points of view across, makes her story more legitimate, makes it more full-bodied.
Yeah, I think you do. It stops the camera to go in like 2D, and you can make, yeah, I get it, but it makes it more 3D, and it works really well. Excellent idea indeed. So yeah, no, excellent for that indeed. So now I have to ask you, of course, looking at, I said that's pretty much all I can really mention about the book, because the book's only just come out when this podcast done. So I don't want to give too much more away. I'm not going to ask you about anything about the ending, so we'll go and read the ending, okay? But I think, how should we put it then? On the ending, without giving the ending away, which that's
Okay.
quite subtle for me. How did you feel when you got to the ending with that? Did you know, when you looked back at it, when you first, after 20 years, did you think so? The ending was quite different to what you originally planned, or was it always there from the beginning?
No, I think I always wanted it to end the way it did. It
Mm.
felt like everything just kind of came full circle, I guess is the way to describe it.
Yeah, I think so as well with that, 'cause I think it does make sense with what you've done there, definitely with that. Because I don't think it's because it's quite a relatively short book. This, some people read it as well,
Yeah.
and I like that, because sometimes it's the danger is like when you do 6 AD, go and do follow your master's book lengths, Mr.
Yeah.
King. They go on forever sometimes. But you kept this down, like I said, what was it about? It's about 25,000 words, is it, your book then? So
Oh, I can't remember how many words it is. I've got it here, so I can tell you how many pages it is.
yeah,
It's 164 pages.
It's relatively modest, really, because like because
Mm.
mine was just under 50,000 words, and it was around about 230 pages. So I
Yeah,
said yours is probably about 40,000, which is a modest
yeah,
book actually.
yeah,
But I like that. I like that because it means like you're not hanging around.
yeah.
You're not, because my brother loves Brian Lumley's Necromancer series, and I full well remember one of them where he had 300, 200 pages that set in the modern days, and it goes back 10,000 years, so another 400 pages. And you've reached a point then you've just lost your audience, but doing what you've done, because it's quite a tense story and two time zones. But
Mm.
like it makes sense to do it the length you did it, I think, really. So no, good stuff. So okay, on your blog and also the researcher, there were no also you write short stories, like we said before.
Yeah.
So when you look back don't give too much away, but do you think your short stories are quite different to what your novel is proved to be here?
Um, I think yes and no. Um, some of my short stories um are very different. But what I generally tend to favor is the psychological side of horror. So regardless of what's happening, I like to focus on how the person experiencing it is feeling and coping with it and that kind of thing. Um, so I mean, I've written a short story about a man on a spaceship, which couldn't be further away from the Edwardian ghost story that this novel is. Um,
Yeah, that's a bit different.
yeah. But it's all about the other thing is I tend to write singular narratives. There doesn't generally tend to be subplots in what I write. And that's just the way it always comes out. I don't think I've ever really just naturally gone for a subplot. I think I just always think along that one path, which might explain why the book is a bit shorter.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with you. Something like I said, I think it would have been hard, probably like I said, to pull off a 700-page book or something, just to a single narrative. Like he did, so no, it doesn't take away with the books. The book's brilliant. I can
Mm.
understand you completely with that. Right,
Mm.
okay. I don't actually have much more to ask you here, actually. But what we'll do is we'll go to the wrap up questions, and there is a few of them as always. Um, what plans do you have next? Could you do a second novel?
Well, hopefully, yeah. So I've started writing a second. Um, I'm hoping that it comes to fruition. I've planning on doing it quicker than 21 years this time. I think that might be a good plan.
Yeah, I think so. Definitely
Um,
that.
yeah. Well, one of the things about the way that I wrote Heather is that I was very aware while I was editing it that I could never reproduce the way that I created that book because I don't have the time these days as an older person to spend 2 months just blasting away at a laptop and writing a story in a first draft. I can't do that anymore. So I've got to be a lot more disciplined and say, right, so 10 pages today, 10 pages tomorrow. You're a bit busy the next day, so only do 2 pages or whatever. And just kind of try and get it out more slowly and that kind of thing. But I don't want to give away too much about what the next one is, but it does feature a possessed doll.
Ooh. No, we're saying no more then. I have to ask you, obviously, with that first book then being dangling in basically like a cupboard for 20 years,
Mhm.
is there any other novels dangling around there you may go back to in the future?
No, but there are an absolute boatload of short stories that I should probably have a look at.
Yeah, that's fair play. I've got that myself. Oh dear.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was doing that myself when I was clearing out that old USB drive last year, and the stuff I found on it. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you go and look at stuff thinking, and I can say it's about mine. I can't say it's about you. I was looking at some pieces thinking, yes, Andrew, what were you on when you wrote that? Yeah, no, I agree with you completely. So, okay. Anyway, but yeah, okay. Where can people get hold of the?
Okay, so it's available from the publisher's website, which is rottenpoetry.net. It's £8 plus postage and packaging. And you can, well, wait, it's out, isn't it? Sorry, I was going to say you can pre-order it, but this is going out after it's out. So it's out now.
Yeah, it's out now. Yeah, so we'll treat it like that. Yeah, you can get it from your publishers. Is it on all the usual booksellers as well? I take it will be as well, will it?
Yeah, it'll be on Amazon and it'll be digital as well, so you can download it.
Brilliant. That's fine. Obviously, social media plugs then. Where can people find you if you want to have a talk to you? Say about horror films or
Yeah, I mean, feel free because I could go all day on that. So the best place for me is Instagram, and my handle is Seawood_Writes. Or you can find me on Twitter at SeawoodWrites.
brilliant. Now, one thing I should have asked you before, and we were talking about your favorite Stephen King books at the beginning of the podcast. It kind of makes sense to me, full circle.
Yeah.
Stephen King films. What's your favorite?
Oh, that's a good question. Does it count if I say Stand By Me?
No, that's fine. That's
Technically,
fine. That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some absolutely awful Stephen King films
I
out
could
there.
be at the Dark Tower. Dark Tower was the one that irritates me.
Yeah. I used to really like The Shining, but then I read the book and I realized how different it was, and now I can't get along with it anymore. The book kind of ruined the film for me. And then I watched the miniseries film that they did of The Shining, and that wasn't
What was
that
it?
wasn't
I didn't know they did a miniseries of The Shining, actually.
Yeah, yonks ago, like in the 90s. It's very dated. But it's got all the topiary moving around and the proper ending.
Oh, right.
Stephen King produced it because he was so annoyed with Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah, I know we didn't get on. I know. Yeah, people read up. Yeah, they weren't on the better terms after that film. That's for sure of it. I'm telling you what, my favorite one is it's got to be the Shawshank Redemption for me because that's one I struggle to watch because every time it gets the last 10 minutes, it sets the waterworks off with me. It does every single time.
I have that problem with The Green Mile.
Oh yeah, well that's not far behind it. It's done by the same production crew, isn't it? Frank DeCourt on it, so
they just want people to cry.
Yeah, and with The Green Mile, it's 3 hours longer. Though the Shawshank Redemption is 2 in it, so yes.
Yeah.
Oh God, completely. Is there? If I mean, let's turn off and ask you another question to wrap up with. I think a bit of fun. Dream casting for your book. If you could cast some actors for your book, who would you cast?
Definitely Florence Pugh.
Oh God, yeah, brilliant stuff. Yeah,
because she should just be in everything, no question. So she could be Fern.
you could probably get a plain Heather as well. Just put different
probably. And after that, I don't care.
Florence Pugh for both parts, and definitely right.
Yes, her in all the roles. Just put a different one on it.
Great stuff. Thank you for today, Charlotte. It's been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed this. So hang around. I need to speak to you off mic anyway, like I said. Okay. But anyway, guys and girls, yeah, great stuff as always. So as Don Callis over at AEW Wrestling says, stay safe and stay over. See you all next